Congressman and Mr. Speaker. I spoke a little earlier on a 1 minute on this topic, but I was a little pressed for time, and I saw my good friend from Arkansas, Mr. Hill, speaking on this and other important issues, and my friend from Wisconsin. And I thought I would expand a little bit upon my remarks earlier. As the previous speaker just talked about, the important trade issues and other issues the President of the United States is working on with other countries, and I couldn't agree more that those are important issues to be working on. That's exactly what the President and Congress should be focused on. In fact, it should be focused on that in a bipartisan way, Republicans and Democrats working together. Instead, what we're faced with is this pretty bizarre impeachment inquiry process. I think it's important for the American people to know and understand how this is supposed to work and how it is working. An impeachment inquiry, it sounds like first like it's a fair discussion process. But in the past, during impeachment inquiries of President Nixon and President Clinton, the House of Representatives right here, led respectively at the time by Speakers Carl Albert and Newt Gingrich, established the following procedures that are currently not being provided in this rushed process to attempt to impeach President Trump. This is an important precedent that when you're dealing with the President of the United States, who is duly elected by the people of this country, the people of the West Virginia 2nd Congressional District that I represent, voted for Donald Trump for Speaker. This country, in the fair process of the Electoral College, put Donald Trump in as President of the United States. And my district voted for Donald Trump for President of the United States. And so that is how we choose the leader of our country. I stood there on the steps of the Capitol just a few years ago and watched Donald Trump be inaugurated as president with the support of all the former living presidents who attended at the time. Our country has a process that is emulated in this world, admired by the world, that we have a free election, and we respect the results of that election. Instead, what you're seeing here, announced by the Speaker of the House, is this so-called impeachment inquiry. However, she is denying this president the same rights that other presidents were given under this so-called impeachment inquiry. And what exactly are those? I think it's important to understand how this has happened in the past and how it should be happening right now, but is not. I think my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats in Congress here, would like the American people not to understand what they're doing. But first and foremost, in the past, when this was done, the 2 times this was done in the past, I'm going to list for you these 7 things, the 7 rights that have always been given to the accused party. In this case, that's Donald Trump, President of the United States. First, in the committee hearings, there should be given co-equal subpoena power to both the chairman of the committee and the ranking member of the committee, which is the minority party. At that committee level, they're given co-equal power to subpoena witnesses. Right now, it's one-sided. Those who want to impeach Donald Trump are subpoenaing witness after witness after witness, and the other side does not have the power to subpoena witnesses to maybe offer counter-information. That's how a fair process is supposed to work. Secondly, all subpoenas have been subject to a vote of the full committee at the request of either the chairman or the ranking member. So to avoid a one-person witch hunt, when you want to subpoena somebody, either the head of either party here in Congress can request a committee vote, and the committee can vote yes to subpoena or no to subpoena. So rather than one person making all the decisions, which seems to how it is occurring right now, you have at least a committee input. That's how it's been done in the past. That is not happening right now. Third, the President's counsel had the right to attend all hearing and depositions. Can you imagine that? We have hearing and depositions going on right now in the committee, and the President and his counsel that represents him are not even allowed to hear what's being said about him. This is, again, a denial of a basic right in America in a legal process of any kind. The President's counsel has had the right to present evidence, because evidence being presented on one side, unless it's a kangaroo court, you have evidence presented on the other side. That is being denied to the President of the United States. The President's counsel has always had the right to object to the admittance of evidence. Again, another basic legal procedure, a legal right. The evidence being presented may have some objections to it, may not be accurate for a variety of reasons. The President's not there, his counsel's not there, he can't even object to the evidence being presented. In the past, the President's counsel had the right to cross-examine witnesses. This should be familiar. In this country, you have a right to face those who accuse you, the right to face your accuser, and the right to cross-examine witnesses. Basic legal precepts in this country. Last, the President's counsel would have the right to recommend a witness list. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's important you understand that our president's being denied these 7 basic legal rights to defend himself right now. This is not a fair and just system in any way. My mother fled a communist country. When she was 20 years old, she was in Cuba, and Fidel Castro came down from the mountains with the guns and locked her and her family up. My mother was in prison for 7 weeks. In communist countries, you have to prove your innocence. You're accused first, and then you're stuck with the burden of somehow trying to prove you didn't do something, trying to prove that you're not guilty. In this country, they have to prove you're guilty. You have the right to be presumed innocent. Innocent until proven guilty. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a disgrace what's happening here. The president is somehow in this court of public opinion with one-sided evidence trying to prove his innocence to people who are assuming he's guilty, haven't presented any real evidence to that fact. And it is, even if you aren't a supporter of President Trump, you still subject to this process. Only imagine if you were falsely accused of something, or God forbid, your son or daughter was falsely accused of something. You would expect your child to have these same basic rights in a legal process to defend themselves. If they can deny these rights to the President of the United States of America, rest assured, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will deny that right to you one day. You should be alarmed at this, no matter where you stand on the issue of liking President Trump or not. So with that, Mr. Congressman, my colleague from Wisconsin, I'll